plan to make sure you, your family, and your pets are safe this hurricane season. Visit GOSEP's GetAGamePlan.org and download the new and improved Get a Game Plan app for important emergency planning information and tools to keep you safe.
Take advantage of the time you have before an emergency. Finalize your plans. Have 3 days' worth of supplies and other essentials in your emergency supply kit. Contact your parish OEP office if you have medical or transportation issues that will make it difficult to evacuate.
You play an important role in making our emergency plans work. Take the time to learn your responsibilities.
Like I always say,
one team, one heartbeat.
I love taking care of my mom. It wasn't easy at first. She learned how to better communicate her needs.
And you learned how to not ignore yours.
I discovered how to make healthier meals.
And I discovered how much I enjoyed them.
Becoming a caregiver is a learning experience for everyone. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
And welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to cover all the home teams, your opportunity to be able to enjoy a great opportunity to be able to enjoy a fantastic look at sports here in New Orleans as we begin our 7th season right here on Inside New Orleans Sports. 7th season on WLAE-TV, over 734 shows. And, of course, a lot has happened here on this program since its inception. We have now moved into our 3rd studio and our final studio. We're now broadcasting for the Pontchartrain Production Studios, state-of-the-art studio that WLE has put together. This will be our final home, and of course, we've enjoyed a lot of great shows over the last 7 seasons. An opportunity to be able to talk to, again, the individuals that cover sports throughout Louisiana, those that cover the Saints, LSU, Tulane, some great conversations, some great information over the last 6 years, going now into our 7th season, and we're excited about what we're going to bring in this 7th season. Over that time, again, we were grateful to be able to win the New Orleans Press Club's 2015 Excellence in Journalism Award for the best TV sports show. Again, as I said, the biggest upset since Andrew Jackson here in New Orleans beat the British. But again, it's an opportunity for us to be able to continue to bring, again, great sports conversation for you each and every Thursday night. Of course, with a rebroadcast every Friday night right here on WLE at 10 p.m. We're waiting on Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports. He is our guest tonight. He will join us. Some breaking news with Drew Brees this afternoon, of course, with the family focus situation. So, again, he'll be with us in a few minutes, but he'll give us an opportunity to open up the phone lines a little bit earlier at 866-3200. If you have any questions or comments about the Saints, LSU or Tulane. We're on the cusp of an incredible year here in sports here in New Orleans and across Louisiana. It's been building for a while now, and it's an opportunity for you, again, if you're a Saints fan, Pelicans fan, a Tulane fan, or LSU fan, heck, you could say Nichols fan, after what Southeastern did last week in beating the 6th-ranked team in their division, the FCS. In Jacksonville State, you could say you could throw Southeastern in there if they could continue to be able to play well. But we're on the cusp of something special. And, talking about it on the radio, talking about it on this show as well. There have been some tough seasons, obviously, for Tulane. LSU, again, up and down over the last few years. But again, Ed Orgeron seems to have been able to stir the ship in the right direction. And the Saints, after, again, 2 heartbreaking situations in terms of the Minnesota Miracle and also what happened with the no call, the Saints are on the cusp of, again, an opportunity to be able to win another championship here in New Orleans. We are in the 10th year anniversary of the Saints Super Bowl win down in Miami, and coincidentally, the Super Bowl is in Miami this year. It'll be interesting to see ultimately, again, how this thing kind of breaks out. Saints have a tough road this season with, again, the first 4 games of the season being very, very difficult. Saints have not started out the season over the last few years, in typical Saints fashion, where you would think they would get out the gate pretty quickly and ultimately have an opportunity to be able to win. It's again kind of built over time with them. First quarter of the season, especially the opener, not so much for the Saints. But again, I think everything is trending up as far as the Saints go, and of course the local teams. You look at what happened last week with the LSU Tigers, and look, I've said it all along this week on Inside New Orleans, the radio show, as we've talked a little bit about last week with Georgia Southern. I am very impressed with the LSU offense. There's no doubt about that. When you talk about the LSU offense, the opportunity to be able to use the spread, to be able to use the RPO game, Joe Burrow saying that he has really run this offense since he was in high school, and the ability for him to be able to, again, be with Joe Brady, be with Steve Ensminger, and this kind of hand-in-glove situation that they have now with LSU in terms of the offense, it was flawless against Georgia Southern. 55-3 winners. The Tigers are the 6th-ranked team in the nation, but they step up in class this week against Texas. To me, Georgia Southern, nothing more than a scrimmage. I know people are really excited right now about what happened in Tiger Stadium last week, but I would caution everybody, to be able to kind of, pump the brakes on this a bit in terms of how prolific the offense was because of the opponent that the LSU has. When you look at this week, though, this will be a true litmus test on where the Tigers are. Step up in class, going to Austin. Normally you'd be in a situation where, again, with so many Tiger fans traveling to Austin to be able to see LSU and Texas play. Texas kind of hoarding the tickets. Only about 3,000 tickets available for LSU fans to be able to go to Austin. So it's going to be a burnt orange crowd. It's going to be, again, the first opportunity for a lot of these young players with LSU to be, again, behind enemy lines, being at a hostile environment in another stadium, much like you'll see at UT in Austin. But again, when you look at this LSU team, I think they're primed for greatness this season. The schedule really sets up well for them. If you can get to a situation where you can win at Texas, then you have the opportunity, the way the SEC is set up, with really the toughest game down the stretch here now would be Alabama. And, of course, a lot of people believe this is the year with the new offense that LSU would have an opportunity to maybe beat an Alabama and Nick Saban. But with that said, look, I thought it was an impressive performance against Georgia Southern in all 3 phases of the game. You like the way, again, that Burrow commanded the offense. You like the way, again, the skilled players played. I mean, having the opportunity to be able to utilize backs out the backfield, to be able to catch the football is huge for this team, something we haven't seen a lot. Again, running the ball out of the spread with the RPO game, we'll see how that's going to work in SEC play as they kind of step up in class this week against Texas. But look, they have the skill position players. I think it's going to be interesting to see if it's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if it's going to be Leonard Fournette, or again, if we're going to start to see more of a Davis Price and John Emery type situation. To me, John Emery's the best back on this team. He's also a guy that is coming in as a freshman. I think he has the ability to be very, very dynamic. But again, Orgeron is going to, again, take his time, I believe, with the freshman. But I've always said, If you're at LSU and you're in a situation where, again, you've got one of these blue chippers coming in, you've only got 3 seasons with these guys, and then they're off to the pros. So you might as well start playing these guys as a freshman. We're seeing that again with Stingley. Stingley is a kid, again, highly touted, #1 recruit in the nation, comes to LSU. It was Ogeron that was saying last year during the bowl game that he could have started for the Tigers last year for the bowl game if that would have been an opportunity for him to be able to play. He comes in now as a true freshman. Will be playing opposite Christian Fulton at the cornerback position, and a real chance for him not only to be able to impress the scouts, the NFL scouts down the line with his ability to play cornerback, but also his ability to return punts, because much like we've seen with Patrick Peterson, much like we've seen with Tyrann Mathieu, this is a dynamic playmaker when it comes to the return game, and he can flip the field for you at any time. When you start looking at the wide receivers right now, look, the one thing about LSU over the years, when you talk about the ground and pound that we've seen, at least in my lifetime with LSU football, you've always had incredible athletes in terms of pass catchers, wideouts, tight ends, etc. LSU utilizing the tight end, they wasted Foster Moreau's senior year, having to have him, again, be more of a blocking extra tackle than having him being a tight end and getting out into pass coverage and catching passes. On the flip side, you got a situation now where the recruits that are coming in, highly touted. We've seen so many of those, from the Odell Beckhams to the Jarvis Landrys, that go on to the NFL after, again, careers at LSU and excel in the NFL because of the NFL game. This particular offense, the way it's set up with, again, the Saints concepts, will now give the LSU wide receivers an opportunity to be able to get in space and utilize their athleticism. I only have a few questions and marks about this going forward. And you can't base this off what you saw at Georgia Southern last week. Number one, the offensive line. I understand that the offense now will be a quick strike offense in which they'll be getting the ball out very quickly within a couple seconds, much like we've seen with Drew Brees, in his time here in New Orleans. That's fantastic. You still got to be able to have receivers that can get off the jam, receivers that can get separation. Can they do that on a consistent basis against Power 5 teams? Can they do that on a consistent basis when you talk about the wide receivers for LSU against SEC competition? And we're going to find that out very quickly, again, this week at Texas. When it comes to the offensive line, much maligned. Biggest question mark going into this season was the LSU offensive line. And I don't think that again, we found out anything against Georgia Southern. But we will find out a lot about this offensive line when they go to Austin and take on Texas this week, because Texas has a formidable front and is again, legitimate Power 5 legitimate Power 5 team in a conference that again, is traditionally one of the better conferences in college football. So when you look at what's going to happen on Saturday night in Austin, I'll be watching closely what's going to happen with this offensive line. Do they give Joe Burrow the opportunity to go through his progressions as he did last week? Because I can tell you right now, there was no resistance at all in terms of the Georgia Southern defensive line to the LSU offensive line. Little or no resistance. Burrow was able to sit back there and literally pick Georgia Southern apart. Wide receivers ran free all afternoon long against Georgia Southern. We won't see that against Texas. We won't see that against SEC competition. And that's going to be, again, the next step for this offense going forward. And that's why I've been saying all week on the radio show to be cautiously optimistic about what you saw last Saturday night against Georgia Southern. Not that I'm downplaying the offense. I'm not. I think it's great. It's an opportunity for us to be able to see an LSU team that takes advantage of a lot of the type of players that we have here in Louisiana, the athleticism, and that will also help them, again, in terms of recruiting down the line, to be able to keep the best here in Louisiana going to LSU. But this is, don't make no mistake, this is a huge test for LSU against Texas. They win this game, this really kind of opens a door for them, again, not only to be able to be in the conversation for a Final Four or a national championship, but it also gives them an opportunity to be able to also, again, have challenge in the SEC West and, of course, in the SEC as well. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We come back. We'll talk a little bit about Tulane, and then we'll get into the Saints, and then hopefully Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports will be joining us, and we'll get his take on what's going on. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. It's the beginning of our 7th season right here on WLAE-TV from, again, the Pontchartrain Production Studios. I'm Eric Asher.
We're
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands.
Yeah, it was wide. No, it was still wide open. You know, I could hear everything was talking. That's why I had to flip it out.
The only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement.
I know. I'm just going to keep going, dude. If I got to do an hour, I got to do an hour.
Packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports will join us. A little bit different tonight. Again, we're opening up the phone lines at 866-3200, an opportunity for you to get in a little bit early. We've talked a little bit about the LSU Tigers and their matchup against Texas this weekend, a big matchup. Again, we'll get into Tulane in just a moment, then we'll talk a little bit about the Saints. But let's head to the phone lines. Tom is in Metairie. Tom, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey, Eric, I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
I want to see what your opinion is. It seems like Coach O expresses his opinion about the players nationally, if they played well or not. We haven't seen that from a lot of coaches in the past. I want to see what you think about that. And secondly, a lot of LSU's offense, I'm not complaining, was really the dump-off pass, the majority of it. So I don't know if you have an opinion about, if they knock that down, Texas take that away from us, I think LSU has the capability of going deep. I'll hang up and listen to you.
Thank you, Tom. First of all, one of the most refreshing things about Coach Orgeron is he has been honest. Now, look, let's face it. He's very, very close to the vest. Almost, again, like Sean Payton is. You rarely hear about injuries. Obviously, last week, you had Sadiq Charles and Michael Divinity that were suspended. We have no idea what the suspension is about. We have no idea what the issues were. In the past with Les Miles, we know what the situation is there. Even with Nick Saban, even though he's always held things close to the vest, he was in a situation where he was a little bit more forthcoming. I think that, again, he's always been fairly honest with the media on what's going on. I think one of the things that's refreshing about Orgeron and what he's done thus far is, again, his ability to recruit on a national basis. We know that every couple of years you get these incredible recruiting classes out of Louisiana. Now, the biggest issue he's going to have down the line here is to be able to keep the Texas A&Ms and the Alabamas out of the state of Louisiana. But he's kind of augmented that this year by, again, going into Maryland, going into Virginia, going into California, and bringing in some great recruits. So, again, all of a sudden, the recruiting base goes from Louisiana to a national recruiting base. When you start talking about the scheme and what they're going to do in terms of the short passing game, look, just think of the way the Saints run their offense. The tight end is an integral part of the offense when you have a pass-catching tight end like we're going to see with Jared Cook now with the offense, like we've seen with Jimmy Graham in the past. You look at the wide receivers. The opportunity, again, with short routes that give them a chance to be able to catch the ball and then to be able to use their athleticism is huge. But yes, I think your point is well taken. They are going to have to be able to throw. They're going to throw the balls to the backs, and honestly, again, they'll be able to have to spread the ball around. I think if there's any indication of what we saw last week, they should be able to do that. Although, again, I think it comes down to the offensive line, how much better they've been. Look, there's no doubt in this type of offense, you have the ability to be able to get the ball out quickly so you take pressure off the offensive line. But you still have to be able to protect for the 1, 2, 3 seconds that it will take for Burrow to get the ball out. And, of course, as I mentioned, it's a domino effect here because of the ability for the pass catchers to be able to get off the jam at the line of scrimmage and to be able to get separation to be able to catch the football. Back to the phone lines we go. Toby is in Gretna. Toby, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Toby.
Hey, Eric, do you think the Saints should rest Drew Brees on Wednesdays to give him a day off? And I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
I think it would be very, very difficult for Brees to be rested on a Wednesday. First of all, the starter takes the majority of the snaps, okay? I mean, Bridgewater takes minimum amount of snaps. If there's a gimmick play with Taysom Hill, then he will take that snap. I don't think that you're in a situation right now with Breeze where, again, he needs the time off. He got a lot of work within training camp, but hasn't had an opportunity to play a lot in the preseason games. I like what Peyton is doing with him now in terms of holding him out of preseason games. There's no reason to be able to go out and to be able to see Drew Brees in preseason. You know who Drew Brees is. The big question is going to be going forward. We talked about it. We talked about it last year. A lot of people don't want to face up to it. When given protection, last year, Drew Brees was phenomenal. The wide receivers, the young wide receivers, and Kirkwood, Carr, and Smith all let him down in the second half of the season. Their inability, much like I talked about the LSU receivers, get off the line of scrimmage, be able to get separation, to be in the right spot at the time on this timing offense. That hurt Drew Brees down the stretch last year. But again, much like I talked about with the LSU situation, it's a domino effect. The offensive line was injured. Started off with Teron Armstead. And of course, from what we understand now, Max Unger played the entire season hurt. So when you start having to move Pete outside, or you're going with a lesser offensive tackle on the left side, that affects this offensive line. The offensive line's injuries last year led to in my opinion, to again the offense not being as prolific down the stretch. So they got to be injury free. If this offensive line, look, that's one of the reasons why I really like them against Houston on Monday night. You know, to me, the biggest thing that's going to have to happen on Monday night is not on the side of the offense, it's on the side of the defense. The ability to be able to again contain Deshaun Watson. He was sacked 62 times last year, holding the ball a little bit long, but also a guy that, again, was using his legs to kind of make time for his receivers. When you talk about the Hopkins, when you talk about Stills, who was just brought in, Fuller, these are fast receivers that can catch the football consistently. Hopkins, in my opinion, is one of the best wide receivers in all the NFL. If ultimately they're in a situation where they cannot contain Deshaun Watson, it could be a long night for the Saints defense. You know, that goes with Davenport, the ability to be able to rush the passer, but more importantly, again, you have to be able to be able to seal the edges and make sure that again Watson is not breaking contained. That's one of the keys, in my opinion, to what's going to happen on Monday night in the Dome. If you can control Deshaun Watson, you can control the offense of the Houston Texans. On the flip side, for the Saints, from an offensive standpoint, it goes back to what we just talked about. You know, again, Jared Cook will come in. He will take a little bit of pressure, in my opinion, off of Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, it was miraculous how he continued to be able to be a productive wide receiver with so much attention that was played to him last year. I mean, he was bracketed. They boxed him in. Every type of coverage you could have out there to be able to stop Michael Thomas from catching the football, teams were able to do that. Why? Well, Kirkwood, Smith, Carr, again, they were in the witness protection program. Had no idea what they were going to give you from week to week after the first part of the season, when, again, defensive coordinators got film on these guys. When you look at Peyton in this past training camp, and I asked the question last week on the radio show, which way is he going to go? Is he going to stay with the players that he's put time into, that he feels maybe will take the next step? Or is he going to go with the Butlers and the Simmie Cobbs and the little Jordan Humphreys, and maybe go with again, some young, fresh blood within that wide receiving core? He chose to go with the players that he's been working with over the last couple seasons, with the anticipation that they're going to have the opportunity to be able to ultimately, again, be NFL wide receivers for an entire season, not a half a season. So as they come out of the box on Monday night, again, you got to be able to see something out of Kirkwood, Smith, and Carr, more than just blocking downfield. They got to be able to catch the football, to be able to take pressure off of Michael Thomas and now Jared Cook. Another question mark going into this game is there is no more Mark Ingram. And how does that affect this team going forward? First and foremost, not just the power running game, but his ability to be able to block for Drew Brees. You got a guy named J.J. Watt that's on the Houston Texans defensive line. They don't just play him in one spot now. They move him all over the defense, different gaps. So, again, everybody's going to have to be able to account for where J.J. Watt is. They've also got a pretty good defensive line. When you start looking at where the Saints are in terms of passing the football, in the past, if Ingram was in, he turned himself into one of the best pass blockers as a running back in the NFL. He's in Baltimore now. Okay? No more of the opportunity to have a guy like that can protect Drew Brees. The question is, who picks up that role now? The other part of this is, when you start talking about the Alvin Kamara, what is his pitch count going to be? Well, how does his role expand on this team? We saw in the first 6 weeks of last season, again, a heavy dose of Alvin Kamara. The question has always been, can Alvin Kamara last 16 games with that type of workload? Well, again, we're going to find out very quickly, because there is a thought process out there that he is going to take on more of a load of not just catching the football out of the backfield and being a wide receiver or a receiver for this team, but also a guy that's going to carry the rock for him quite a bit. Let's head back to the phone lines at 866-3200. Let's go to West Wego and Hal. Hal, welcome to the show. How you doing, Hal?
Eric, hey, buddy. Listen, I was thinking that the fact that Taysom Hill, I'm hearing a feedback.
Okay.
I hope that's not coming my fault.
You're good. Go ahead. It's probably you need to turn your TV down, but go ahead.
The TV is now off. I had the sound down.
There you go.
Oh, boy, okay. So the fact that J.J. Watt can be so dangerous coming in through our offensive line, I'm wondering, what do you think the Saints are going to do as far as putting more special plays in, maybe more Taysom Hill, just to frustrate J.J. Watt?
Hal, thank you for the phone call. I do think that the playbook for Taysom Hill will ultimately expand here this year. I think we've seen a couple things out of Taysom Hill. First, again, his ability to be able to run with the football, which we knew he's become a physical and a dynamic runner. His ability to catch the ball. He caught the ball a little bit last year. Okay, but the main thing now that what we saw a much more accurate passer in the preseason. We saw guys whose mechanics were much better. It would not surprise me if there are a few more plays in the playbook for Taysom Hill to be able to throw the football this year. Now, again, I said this on the radio show. I know this sounds crazy. I mean, you're going to actually take the ball out of the Hall of Famers' hands, and you're not going to let him throw the football, and you're going to let Taysom Hill throw the football? Well, I think we've seen, again, a dramatic improvement in Taysom Hill as a passer in the offseason. It's pretty obvious that he has worked hard, and I think you saw it during the preseason. So as Peyton, again, goes to his bag of tricks and wants to be able to put the defenses, and again, future defenses that the Saints are going to have to be able to see in a position where they have to prepare for Taysom Hill, the more he can do, the more they have to prepare for. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen there. If you remember last year, the season before, Mark Ingram was the guy around the goal line. You gave the ball to Mark Ingram when you were close to the goal line, or you needed an opportunity to be able to get a first down. Now, with Taysom Hill here, you're in a situation where the Saints have an opportunity to use Kamara, Taysom Hill. They are not a team that ultimately, again, you can pigeonhole into one thing. All right, we're going to take another break. When we come back, this time, Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports will join us. I'm Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports joins us on the program. Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
How about these palatial studios?
This, huh?
Is this incredible? Else. Yeah, this is unbelievable.
A little jealous.
I feel like the Jeffersons. I'm moving on up.
How about that?
No doubt. All the way to the top. Sean, before we get started, I'll tell you what. My DVR is set to Fox 8 every single night at 10:30. You guys are putting on some fantastic shows. Tell us a little bit about it.
A lot of shows. We have Fox 8 Overtime on Tuesdays. We have Black and Go Review on Mondays. We have Fox 8 Football Friday debuts Friday night, 10:30. We have our Fox 8 Live Tailgate. We have our Final Play. So it's been football season's here, and it's been a lot.
A little bit different when you're talking about the season opener now for the New Orleans Saints. Today, Drew Brees had a press conference, his normal press conference before the game, but it went in a different direction because of the article was written in it was Big Easy magazine here in New Orleans about focus on family and what that particular organization stands for, anti-LGBTQ, and of course Brees, from what I understand, simply did a stand-up spot for Bring a Bible to School for kids, and somehow this got misconstrued in that Brees is supporting this organization, which again is anti-LGBTQ. What happened this afternoon with Drew Brees?
Well, first off, he came to the press conference. He was ready. He came out kind of guns a-blazing, and like I've been to hundreds of Drew Brees press conferences. That was about as pointed and as deliberate and as what's the word I'm looking for? Upset, whatever, however you want to say it. He was hot. He was ready to express why he felt the way he felt. I'm not familiar with that group. I started looking at it a little bit just as the video started to circulate more. He insisted that was a Bring Your Bible to School thing he was promoting, not necessarily any group that's connected to any anti-LGBT community or group that has those types of views. In the years that I've been around Drew and the people that speak so highly of him, I have never seen anything even remotely close to any sort of anti-anything, really, other than he is an upstanding citizen for equality for everybody. So clearly it's something that bothered him, and now he addressed it, and he talked for a little bit, and then we got to football. But it was a situation that I guess he felt like he needed to deal with. We dealt with it, and we moved on.
He mentioned, he did a video that is out there right now explaining his part in this situation. But he mentioned, again, the two rules he lives by, and one of them is love thy neighbor as you love thyself, meaning that, again, he has love for his teammates, he has love for everyone, he doesn't discriminate against anyone. And anybody that's known Drew Brees in his time here in New Orleans cannot fathom him being discriminatory in any way.
No. It's clearly an uncomfortable situation for him to be in, because in his mind he wanted to promote Bring Your Bible to School. He's a devout Christian. He's a part of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and he is not hidden behind that at all. He's out front with that, like a lot of players are in that locker room and around the NFL. So it's an unfortunate situation to be in, because if you know Drew, you know he is not a discriminatory person in any way, shape, or form.
Let's move on to football. Saints final cuts. Any surprises that you saw in that final cut?
Yeah, I thought the riskiest move was Chris Banjo. I just didn't think, from what you need out of that position versus what he gave you, I thought he was worth to keep around, as opposed to a guy like J.T. Gray and Saquon Hampton, who's coming off an injury, who I thought practiced today. I just felt like with as many games as you won via special teams last year, or helped you win via special teams, he was such a key cog. And on plays you didn't necessarily notice, but if you really go back and watch the tape, he was there. And I think even Sean Payton even kind of addressed that was a tough one. So Chris Banjo was the riskiest move, in my opinion. You can make a case for the other moves that they made and understand their line of thinking. That was the one I was like, yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
Just signed a 3-year, $9 million contract. I mean, literally just signed the contract, and of course, nobody thought that he'd be gone. I thought he was one of the guys that'd be sure thing. Basically, also because you've lost leadership. You know, you've lost leadership in Ingram. Now you lose another guy that was a locker room leader, and again, you worry about that a little bit in terms of leadership. Although, again, I'm going to ask you a little question about that going forward, about this particular locker room and the leadership. But we'll get to that. Kiko Alonso comes in for Beagle, the special teams linebacker. To me, this is a no-brainer on the part of the Saints, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a legitimate NFL star that's played 3 positions for a special teams guy, and I am convinced, especially after talking to a few people, that this was not something the Saints were seeking. It kind of fell in their lap. They got a call, and it was, you want to give me Kiko Alonso for Vince Beagle? Is this a joke? Is this real? Where's the catch here? And kind of goes to show you the state of both organizations.
Right.
But Kiko Alonso is going to be a depth guy that can fill in and start in a pinch. I don't think he's going to start this week. I still think it's going to be Anzalone Klein and Demario Davis, whatever combination they use like that. But if nothing else, you got a guy, as soon as he's ready, you can plug in, and he can give you quality reps, quality snaps at a position that I thought was pretty deep going into the season, and I think it's even deeper now. You
did a film breakdown on him, strengths and weaknesses for the audience that maybe has not followed him in Buffalo or Miami.
Hustle. He does not give up on a play, which is encouraging. There's a play in the Raiders game last year where he's on the edge, and they run an end around the opposite way. He comes all the way across to make the tackle on Martavius Bryant, receiver. So, got hustle. Very good against the run in terms of pre-snap recognition, knowing where to go. Shoots the gap well. When he I guess you can call it, when he guesses right on the play, he's really effective. Can shake blocks. Look, find me a great linebacker that can cover. I mean, off the top of my head, there's a couple, right? There's Deion Jones, there's Leighton Vander Esch, there's Kuechly, and there's Jalen Smith. Those are four at the top of my head that can guard sideline to sideline in pass coverage. He is not one of those guys. He's going to get beat on a double move from time to time, but I think he's willing to play in coverage, and he got 3 interceptions last year. And he had 3 forced fumbles. So clearly, he's a guy that is around the ball at times.
One of the surprises was Rankins being taken off the PUP list. It means that again they don't want him having to sit the first 6 games of the season. They feel like he's going to come back before then. But it really again kind of throws a monkey wrench into Week 1 because Onyemata is also suspended because of the marijuana possession. They let Ziggy Hood go. They let Sylvester Williams go on the interior of the defensive line. What do you think happens there?
The interior of the D-line?
Yes.
I think it kind of is what it is right now. You have Onyemata, who doesn't count on the 53. You have Rankins, who was technically a limited participant today at practice. You have Mario Edwards, who was out today, so that's something to watch.
Right.
And you have Tuttle, and then you have Malcolm Brown. What's the name I'm missing? I'm missing a name, aren't I? Perhaps not, but I still think you're going to make do with this first week with those guys, and then move on to the next week where you'll get Onyemata back. And I'm curious what happens with Rankins because it's not obviously this week, and it's clearly before Week 6.
Right.
So somewhere in the middle there, and the people I talked to were still somewhat cautious, where other people were more optimistic. So I'm just ballparking around Week 4. That's what I'm thinking.
He's got to be on a pitch count when he comes back.
Right.
I mean, he's got to be on a pitch count, and that's going to be the interesting part. And that's why I was wondering why, if I question one thing, why not go with the veterans? They decided not to. They went with Shai Tuttle. So we'll see what happens down the line here when it comes to the defensive line. Kamara, workload. We've heard Peyton say it's not going to be expanded, but how can it not be?
Yeah, I think Latavius Murray has a role, obviously. I think Kamara is going to get upwards of 55 to 60, maybe even 65% of the offensive snaps. How many touches he gets remains to be seen. I know he's got 1,000 on his mind. 1,000-yard receiving, 1,000-yard rushing. He's got the skill set to do it. Be very curious to see if that opens up, given what the Saints have in the passing game with a couple of new weapons, if the underneath game really opens up and they expand his route tree. That's a fine line that you walk because I think you got to have him on the field. He is your playmaker, but you also have to stretch that out over a long season and into the playoffs should they make it that far. So when it's all said and done and you look back at the snap counts, I think it's going to be around 55 to 60% of the offensive snaps.
Let's talk about Taysom Hill. We had a call earlier, asked me about my thoughts on Taysom Hill. I think his role will be expanded, especially now that he's proven he can throw the ball with a little bit of accuracy. What do you think about his role? Does it expand a little bit more this year? Again, they're only going with 2 tight ends. He's the 3rd tight end on the roster now. Your thoughts?
I think it does because if nothing else, everyone knew what he was doing last year when he came in the game, that inside zone read. They had added a few new wrinkles, but for the most part, that's what they ran when he was in. It worked early, did not work late. So I think you got to expand if you want him to be on the field and be effective. He can run routes. He can block. Boy, can he block.
Yes, he can.
He can run down kicks. But when he's in the game as they quote-unquote quarterback, I think you have to expand it. I think everyone's going to sell out for the inside zone read. So I think you'll see a lot of 7 this year. He is an impressive just athlete all the way around. I joked with him in our pregame show, if we're going to see you play linebacker or safety this year, he said, I'd be willing to. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it.
He gets down on kickoffs and punts.
225. So I think the role gets expanded. not just out of diversity, but also necessity, because I think, if you go back to what you did last year, I think it's pretty telegraphed.
Eric McCoy's first game as a pro. Again, the defensive coaches are going to target him in trying to confuse him. Your thoughts?
Look, I think you got to roll with it. It's just that time, It's just that time. So I think, when you're a rookie and it's your first game, you just got to go through it. You just got to go through it. It's an active defensive line that he's facing. But look, he squashed that center competition. To me, the biggest competition going into camp was over within a week. So he's got the mental makeup to handle it. It wasn't like he's coming from Assumption College. Right. He's coming from Texas A&M, playing some real dogs in the SEC on the defensive line. So I think honestly, he's going to be fine. Now, I think there's going to be some hiccups, but I think he's there mentally. He says he's going to be a little nervous. If you weren't nervous your first game, I think something would be wrong with you at this point. But I think he's going to be fine.
Break down Houston and the Saints Monday night at the Dome. I was talking to the audience a little earlier. To me, it's about containing Deshaun Watson.
I think it's what it's all about, because if you do that, I think everything else in that offense becomes very average. He becomes very average.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting. Sean Payton pointed out that they face an athletic quarterback every day in practice in Taysom Hill. And I think there's some merit to that. Those are two very athletic players that can throw. He is, how do I put it? He is more explosive than efficient. So if you force him to be efficient, perhaps it's not going to be there. But if you let him be explosive, he can put on a show.
Right.
And he's got a receiver in DeAndre Hopkins he's not afraid to throw to.
Right.
Like Michael Thomas, can catch the ball in traffic. And they got to add some new weapons. I think Kenny Stills is more of a mid-2, high-3, as opposed to a true 2, best in the NFL. Fuller's back. Got two new running backs. But I got to tell you, at some point, if you're the Saints, and Jeff Duncan brought this up on our show last night, you test that left side, right? You got a rookie left guard. You got Laramie Tunsil.
Right, you just
try to confuse something there. Try to confuse those guys. So I think if you're the Saints, you look at the Indianapolis Colts game, you realize just how human Deshaun Watson was when he had to stay within the pocket. Yes. The accuracy was just off. So I think that's the approach you got to take until he proves he can handle otherwise.
I said it earlier tonight. Davenport's got to set the edge. You can't let him get out of the pocket. You let him get out of the pocket. We've seen Matt Ryan in the past against the Saints be able to create time with his feet. You can't let Deshaun Watson do that.
No, you can't, because he's going to kill you. You've got to keep him contained. It's almost one of those games where you almost don't even need a sack. You just got to keep him bottled up.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Almost just, two-step stop. It's one of those types of games where you don't want. If you sack him, great. But just don't let him break contain, because it's better to not get the sack but keep him contained as opposed to getting the sack and let him break contain.
You've been in a lot of locker rooms with the Saints team. You've been in the locker rooms again when they won.
Good, bad, and ugly.
No doubt. When they won Super Bowls, you were the first to have the courage to come out when that locker room was cancerous, and to say that. Talk about this locker room. There's no motivation slogan. Again, it's just been all business. You've said it since day one. Business-like training camp. Talk about this team going into this year.
That's how I feel. There's no need for any of those gimmicks. There's no need for any. There's nobody doubting them. I mean, they're getting picked to play in the Super Bowl by every publication.
Right.
There's no. I know what happened last year. They returned 85% of the roster from last year that played in that game. There's a few new faces, but got the right guys that blended in. There's just no need for it. It's, okay, when's week one? Well, let's get to week one. Then we're on to week two. Very deliberate, very focused. Just urgency is there. It's a mindset of professionals. Like, what's our task today? Let's get in. Let's get it done. Get it done the right way and go home with victory.
Let's shift gears to your alma mater, LSU. Again, I called it a scrimmage against Georgia Southern. I don't read too much into it. I love the offense. I think they get a real test this week against a Power 5 team in Texas. First of all, your thoughts about the new offense. We've heard the concepts about the Saints concepts. We've heard the
passing
RPO.
Concepts.
Right, passing concepts.
Yeah.
We've heard about the RPO. Burrow was flawless last week in his ability to be able to run the offense.
Yeah, I think from a Saints perspective, I called it the West Coast spread. That's what it looked like on film to me.
No doubt.
Their passing concepts are similar. The biggest similarity is the running backs in the backfield uses a big play weapon. Their running game is two totally different things because Saints run counters, traps, under center, whereas LSU, at least early on, is just inside zone.
Exactly.
So that's different. But very clean. You saw the foundational principles of this offense. It looked like a mix between Saints and Penn State, frankly, which makes sense with Joe Brady. And you have a maestro in Joe Burrow that just made the right decision. And when you have a guy who, I think if you were to add up, the physical traits of Joe Burrow, I think he's a solid 7 or 8 around all of them. But I think when it comes to the mental toughness and the mental awareness to make decisions, I think he's a 10. So this system allows him to make simple throws, but it's all about him making a quick decision. I think that's what he's great at.
Right. Well, one of the keys is the offensive line. No test last week against Georgia Southern. You and I talked about it on the radio show this week. We agreed on that. There will be a test against Texas' defensive line with this offensive line.
Yeah. And here they go. I mean, they say they're much improved. You get Sadiq Charles back this week. Hopefully that helps. I don't see why it wouldn't. They said Austin Deculus is the most improved player. There was some concern about that left guard spot. They looked fine last week, but we can't give this full vote of confidence right now.
Right.
So you don't know until you know. So while it's great to say they improved, let's wait and see.
Yeah. Another part of that is, again, much like we see with the Saints, wide receivers being able to get to the spot where they need to be within the offense, get off the jam, get separation. Didn't have to worry about that against Georgia Southern last week. They were running free. Now you're going against, a Power 5 team that will, again, give a little more resistance than we saw last week with Georgia Southern.
Yeah, everything steps up.
No doubt.
They knew it.
Of course.
They knew it. Look, that team was well prepared for Georgia Southern. I'd be shocked if in the midst of their Georgia Southern preparation since February, they didn't also plug in the tape of Texas. I mean, this team has got to be ready. Defensively, they look, if it all pans out to what it certainly looks like to me on paper and what I see with my eyes, to me, this is what a new modern college football defense looks like that's dominant. The way they got those two hybrids in Delpit and Stevens, and it's just mix and match everywhere. So, look, here we are, and look, Georgia Southern was the season opener, but everyone had this game. So, and look, if you get through this game, the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks is pretty simple.
Yep, no doubt. Talking about Texas, give me your synopsis of Texas, because, again, one thing we know is the quarterback can throw the football, but also is a proficient runner. We also know that, again, big wide receivers that they can run. At the running back position, they're a little bit banged up right now. They're a little banged up on the offensive line. New right tackle for the Longhorns coming in this week. When you start talking about where they are, this is going to be as much of a test for Texas as it is for LSU. I like LSU in this game, but Texas has got a pretty good football team there. Again, they're 9th ranked in the country for a reason.
They do. I like Ellinger. I think he's a better thrower than he gets credit for. He's a very tough inside runner. I know they compared him to Tim Tebow. Those comparisons are fair because of his physical style of running. They're down. I read today they're down to 1 scholarship running back, which could certainly help.
They actually moved the backup quarterback into their running back position.
I like LSU in that matchup. Let's just put it that way, because I think LSU's linebackers look really good right now, and they're getting one back in Michael Divinity. So I think, and you saw the line is moving. The money's going in on LSU. What is that, about 6 now, or 6.5? So I think it's a team that you must respect. I think it's a team, though, that if we were objectively looking at it, LSU is better. But it comes down to execution on game day. Nothing is guaranteed. But I like LSU's chances in this game to win significantly. Not 40, 50 points, but double digits.
Yeah, I would agree. I think LSU's the better team. I think they should win. Again, they can't shoot themselves in the foot with missed assignments and penalties. That will bring this thing back. Austin's is going to be full of Longhorn fans because of the small allotment of tickets that LSU got, unless they get them on the secondary market. But it's going to be a majority of Texas fans in that stadium, which I believe leads us to Cade York, who, again, cooked well in Tiger Stadium last week, but now will be expected to kick in enemy territory.
Again, you don't know till you know.
Right.
And it's one thing to kick at home against Georgia Southern. When you squeeze that first one in between the uprights. It's another thing to be down 3 in enemy territory, and they need you to go in and kick a 49-yard field goal with everyone screaming, trying to throw out your concentration. You don't know till you know. This is why they recruited him. Started as a true freshman over, was it Culp?
Yep.
So here you go.
Yep. And of course, look, you look at the weapons now on special team. Atkins, in terms of his kickoffs, which are unreturnable. And now Stingley part of this mix now in terms of returning punts. And in just the little small snips that we saw of him last week, you got to believe that he has the ability to be able to return the punts for touchdowns, much like we've seen with the Honey Badger and Patrick Peterson.
Well, that is, I mean, much like the Saints with Deontay Harris,
yes.
if you can give any kind of boost in that department, I mean, that's such a it just moves you. It just moves you so far because that aspect of it hasn't been around for quite some time. You got a guy that you got to respect back there. Field position changes, combined with the attack style defense that's known to take the ball away. That can really factor in to what everyone hopes is a special season. And I'll say this. If you're objectively looking at LSU and you're looking at Alabama right now, you could honestly say if Cade York turns out to be who he is, they have better special teams, which they're close in other areas. Right. That could be the difference.
Right. And look, what you're hoping is week to week, LSU is going to get better. Okay, especially with this offense, you already know. Again, they have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the defense. They're too deep at every single level of the defense. Now you're a little bit young in the secondary, but very, very talented. And again, by the time you get into November, those guys should be seasoned as well.
Totally agree. And shame on them if they don't get better.
No doubt.
I mean, this is a talented group. So I will say this. After they play Texas, the next couple of weeks are really, was it Northwestern and Vanderbilt, then an off week, then Utah State. So you got, so I almost was like, man, you'd almost rather maybe a little bit tougher game in that 4-week stretch there. But still, you get through Texas, I think you got a shot at being, I guess it would be 5 or 6-0 at that point. So,
well, I mean, most people have them undefeated going into the Alabama game.
But then the gauntlet starts.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Starts October 12th, whatever it is.
No doubt. Let's shift gears to Tulane. We're going to get back to the Saints and LSU in terms of expectations for the year. But Tulane, 42-14 winner over Florida International. One of the things that first stuck out to me was, first of all, we know the Florida International, coming from Florida, has great athletes. And Tulane was able to stay with the athleticism of Florida International. I love the Will Hall offense in terms of the ability to be able to, again, use misdirection, the movement, and the shifts in the backfield. But also, again, what impressed me, as I mentioned to you earlier this week on the radio show, McMillan's ball handling, which I didn't think he had. And if he can continue that type of ball handling, again, with the misdirection they have in the backfield, that's going to bode well for the Tulane offense. But again, a real step up in class this week when you talk about Auburn. Much like we talked about the LSU offensive line step up in class against Texas, it's the same situation right now for the lines, both defense and offensive lines, for Tulane as they go on the plains to take on Auburn.
Look, any good offensive coordinator is going to blend his system to his quarterback. What does his quarterback do well? What does he not do well? And what does he have around him that can make him do, to enhance his game? And Will Hall saw what probably a lot of LSU guys saw in Justin McMillan. A guy that, from the numbers to the sideline, can be accurate, it can be effective. Not as much inside the numbers, but a guy that's got some athleticism, can move. So if you play to the perimeter with him, you can be effective, mixing in some misdirections. And he has a good sense of when to run. And I think that's an underrated skill.
He's a patient runner.
He has a very good sense of when to, now, let's go. Like, hit the kind of the scramble button there, if you will. So I think Justin McMillan is exactly in the right spot with the right coordinator at the right time of his career. Didn't work out at LSU, but he's at Tulane, and honestly, Tulane's better for it, and he's better for being at Tulane.
I was surprised and impressed by the depth at running back.
Yeah, they've got some studs. What was the numbers for Dolphin? Was it 3 carries, 2 touchdowns? Yeah. I can recall Dolphin was the Memphis game last year. I mean, he has electricity.
No doubt.
So you've got some studs. Right. They matched athlete for athlete with FIU, as you said. So what was the difference? The difference was coaching. And the unknown of Will Hall as a coordinator with this team. I don't think Florida International was fully prepared.
The defense, big test again with Auburn because you're stepping up in class to a Power 5 team. But this defense is thought to be one of the best in the AAC. They proved it last week in shutting down Florida International. It'll be interesting again how they perform against Auburn this week.
Yeah, and look, I look at an Auburn team that's coming down off a huge win. I look at a Tulane team that's full of confidence and probably a little deeper than we thought.
Yes.
And probably more athletic than, say, an SEC school would think. And I'm thinking, I'm not predicting upset, but I'm predicting a quality effort out of Tulane. You go in there with the expectation to win. Get over that moral victory stuff. That was so 5 years ago. Go in there, even if they are Auburn, with the expectation of winning, but you're kind of playing with house money a little bit. No one's expecting you to do anything.
Well, and look, they're a little bit battle-tested. They had to go to Ohio State. They had to go to Oklahoma.
Well, think about how last year ended. 5-1, bowl win, start the season. There's some good vibes. Don't think they're going to win. Step up in class, obviously, but don't completely discount the idea of them going in there and playing well.
Well, I think they're going to play well. And then you got the situation with Bo Nix, a freshman, coming off a big game where they beat Oregon. Again, this is his first time playing Jordan Hare. A lot of things on the line. And maybe taking Tulane a little bit lightly coming in, for Auburn. So the table is set for them. I'm not predicting an upset here, but I certainly think that they're not going to get embarrassed by Auburn. They're going to be in this game.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. And, I probably would not have said that had they, come out, rolled out of the gate like last year against Wake Forest and just not make a statement. That was the first statement game I've seen from Tulane in quite some time. I was so happy to see it. Like, finally, there's good vibes, there's good expectations. The bar is raised. Meet it, and they met it.
All right, we got about 2 minutes left. Expectations for Tulane this season.
Hey, man. If you're playing with low expectations, you don't need to be involved in Tulane.
I think they got a chance to win the American Athletic Conference.
8 wins in the hunt for the American. So why not? Why not? It's time to be that at Tulane. Was it fourth year Willie Fritz? It's time to have those realistic expectations. You broke through the bowl barrier. Willie Fritz is a guy that seems like he's going to stick around for a while. So that has to be the expectation.
For LSU, is it, again, Final Four, National Championship, SEC West title, SEC Championship, based on what the small sample that we've seen?
Look, I think the bar is there. This team is as deep and as experienced as you're going to find.
And a favorable schedule as well.
And a schedule that, it depends on the unknown. For instance, Florida's always tough. A&M's going to be tough. Auburn's always going to be tough regardless of their record. And obviously you got Alabama. But you would think, every one of those games except for Alabama, they'd be favorites. So 10 wins was the floor, but I'm now kind of leaning towards 10-2 would be nice, but 11-1 is really where it's at.
Yeah. And of course, the ability to be able to challenge Alabama on the first Saturday in November.
And I wouldn't discount that idea either. I think this could be the year.
Especially with this offense, because we've seen Alabama have problems with spread offenses in the past. And again, that's one of the reasons why I think Orgeron has gone this way. All right, with about a minute left, talk about the New Orleans Saints, your expectations for this team, 10-year anniversary of you and I being down in Miami for the Super Bowl. It's in Miami again this year. We'd love a return visit. Your thoughts?
I'd love to go back. No, I think they check all the boxes. There's a few, minor questions here and there. I have a question about reserve tackle. I have a question about, who's going to emerge opposite Cam Jordan? Is this the year for Marcus Davenport? But other than that, you just got to like what they have. And look, depth in the NFL is kind of an illusion. All it takes is one injury. Your depth is gone.
Well, look what happened last year with the offensive line.
So you got to manage. And they're battle-tested, tough. Mentally tough is a word that's thrown around a lot. I think people kind of just discount it. But it's a real thing.
Yes.
And I think they have it. So I'm thinking 12-4 for the Saints team.
Yeah, and obviously winning the NFC South.
Third year in a row.
And going to the Super Bowl, in your opinion?
Yes. I mean, you've got knocked on the door the last 2 years. Absolutely.
Right. I said this earlier with about 20 seconds left. This could be one of the greatest years in the history of sports in Louisiana.
Yeah. Saints, LSU, Tulane. Nichols will bounce back. And don't forget about SLU as well.
SLU,
how about that? That's a heck of a win for them as well.
Can I throw the Pelicans in there as well?
Pelicans as well.
And, of course, we know what's going to happen in college baseball. No doubt about it. Sean Fazende, Fox 8 Sports. Thanks for joining us here on the program tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m. Also, statewide, Pelican Sports Television, 9 o'clock every Friday night. You can catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and the iHeartRadio app. That is noon to 2 weekdays. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com as well. All the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports can be seen at ericasher.com. Also, want to give special thanks to our underwriters who support this show. Also, the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Tommy Fairley, Naila Jones, Alex Chacon, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.